Hello, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak about how Mercy Corps delivers energy products and services in humanitarian settings. It's actually great to come after the Lighting Global presentation, as what Chris and Nicole shared with us is so relevant to our strategy. Really, they both talked on the importance of quality products and the need to increase access to financing services, which is exactly what we are trying to facilitate. And also Rachel mentioned of a market-based approach calls directly to our work, because this is what we do at our core. So this is really a very exciting place to be for us today. Thanks. So when we speak about access to energy in humanitarian settings, we are really very conscious that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. At Mercy Corps, we really try to take a close look at what communities need, especially to increase their resilience. And then we develop different models to ensure that communities have the capacity to develop from within. So I would like to start with a brief introduction of our general approach to access to energy in humanitarian response, and then present you with a brief case study on Afghanistan. So my colleague Baryalai is the portfolio manager for access to energy programming in Afghanistan, and he will be available for any clarifications. Next slide, please. So Mercy Corps is not this one, the previous one maybe? Yeah, exactly. So Mercy Corps is a leading global non-governmental organization. We work in more than 40 countries, and 90% of our staff, we are about 6,000, come from the countries of implementation, so a deep knowledge from the context where we work. As you can see in this diagram, at the core of our strategy, we have partnerships. We partner with the civil society organizations, government, and private sector actors to help people overcome adversity and build secure, productive, and just communities. So to do so, after a man-made or a natural shock, we operate at a system level, so trying to address really the root causes of any crisis, to try to allow communities to bounce back stronger. Now, if we can go to the next slide, thanks. So as many of you in this call, we are really focused on realizing SDG 7, ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. This is at the core of our approach to access to energy in humanitarian settings. So this for us means that energy is really a means to reach and amplify our development objectives that we have throughout our portfolio. So for instance, if I think about a food security program and I couple it with access to energy, the connection to an electric mill to make flour comes quite naturally. Or if I think about the health sector, a fridge to store vaccine. So we think about access to energy in terms of market system development, which is really in our DNA. Through market system development, our teams try to analyze the supply and demand for energy goods and services to try to support the economic growth and ultimately improve the social outcomes of the communities where we intervene. So what we do normally is to start with a market assessment where we identify both barrier but also market-based solutions. So this means that our project teams really adopt a light touch role. We try to create more than anything linkages between market actors to deliver in the long term those products and services that are needed rather than just coming in, distribute a bunch of products and then leave. So I know that because it's been mentioned previously that other people are doing the same in this call, and I think that we all know that there are no easy models to do this, but we really believe that trying to be context specific could work to make market actors develop the communities of intervention. So we know that applying these systems is quite challenging, especially in humanitarian settings. And at the same time, as humanitarian organization, we have the imperative of do no harm. So this means that we really must adapt our approach to the different contexts. And we do so starting to differentiate between acute and protective settings, and then we try to propose the most effective and sustainable solution. If you go to the next slide, please. So in this slide, I'm trying to show a little bit of the challenges, but also the opportunities that we are seeing in the field. And I'm sure that many of you, of course, are aware of all these. So more than 1 billion people live without electricity, and 80 to 90% of the displaced people rely on biomass for cooking and lighting. 3 billion people use solid fuel for cooking, causing 4 million deaths annually. These figures are definitely shocking, but we also see an opportunity. So in the countries where we operate, people are already paying for energy. As Nicole said, the turnout of money is quite considerable. But often people pay for unhealthy, unreliable, and unsustainable energy. Overall, 27 billion USD per year are spent on energy. We also know that the technology is moving fast and prices are dropping, so this can increase the supply of clean, reliable, and sustainable energy services at the household level for productive uses, for institutions. And we know also that there are private investments worth millions of USD out there, and there are increasing flexible financing systems that have been developed. I'm thinking, for instance, about pay-as-you-go through mobile phones. Next, please. So we said that we really tried to put a context around what we do, right? So I would like to start differentiating between acute emergencies and protracted crises. So when we think about an acute emergency, I'm thinking about, for instance, the Nepal earthquake or the typhoon in the Philippines. So in the initial stage of a crisis, Mercy Corps provides directly the essentials of survival. So we really try to help mitigating the risks and the exposure to threat. But it's also true that very quickly we try to transition toward the recovery programming. So in what we do, we try to meet the best global practices and standards, and this includes also access to energy programming. So for instance, we have developed a master purchase agreement to quickly deploy lighting global certified equipment within the 48 hours after a crisis strikes. So after these very first few days, we tried to transition toward emergency cash transfers instead of in-kind distributions. So through cash transfers, we really think that we can empower people buying what they need the most. And we really think that this is a very dignified way of delivering humanitarian programming. Next, please. But we also said that we work in a complex, protracted crisis. This could be Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Yemen, or Syria. So in this context, our humanitarian work extends over years, not just months. The picture that you have, it's of a building that is actually a teaching hospital in Afghanistan that is now solar powered, thanks to a program that I'm going to explain to you just in a few slides. So our work in access to energy through market system development in this complex crisis facilitates the entrance of quality products and services into the market. And we do so trying to leverage the market systems that are already existing. So we continue to push for frequent practical market analysis in the most severe situations to really try to strengthen the communities from within. So the spotlight of this presentation is going to be in Afghanistan, where we are working with utilities and energy companies to try to engage with communities to co-design solar and hybrid infrastructure. If you can go next, please. So just a quick background on Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, over half of the population is without reliable electricity, and this, of course, hinders the economic and social development. Mercy Corps Afghanistan initiated its journey to renewable energy, developing a model through which solar technology can become more available. So initially, to open up this new portfolio, our team carved a small pot of money from a bigger program that was funded by DFID, and they tried to test a build to operate lease transfer ownership. We shorten it in BOLTO, in the Helmand province. And this was to power the university and the teaching hospital that you saw in the picture before. Then we tried to bring this model to a larger scale, thanks to funding from Expo. And we had a program called Building a Reliable Energy System and Helping Normalize Access. And we like to shorten things, so BRESHNA. And this program tried to make solar energy affordable for households and businesses, while still keeping the technology reliable and and of a high quality. If you can go next, please. So this is clearly a map of Afghanistan, but also it shows the partners with whom we needed to collaborate to make this program possible. So this partner includes the Kabul University for Renewable Energy Lab, which tested the products for quality assurance, the Afghan Renewable Energy Union, which provided access to quality solar installers, microfinance institutions, including Oxus, that gave access to financing for larger scale systems, and the Ministry of Energy and Water, who is setting actually renewable energy policies. So the BRESHNA operating model builds on the market ecosystem to ensure that more installation using the build to operate lease transfer ownership model can be done. Mercy Corps is really, again, trying to play a facilitating role to ensure that through this model, there's an increased demand for solar installation. And we try to aggregate as much as possible the bidding requirements to lower the cost for the consumers. In this way, trying to support all the players in the market. If you can go next, please. So here we have another map of Afghanistan, and the idea behind it is that our market assessments demonstrated that private enterprise potential in Afghanistan is actually constrained by a lack of access to clean, reliable, and affordable electricity. We know that when electricity is available, access can be very sporadic, and we have long hours of blackouts that disrupt the commercial activity, daily life in general. But averagely, there are losses about 10% annually in business incomes. Renewable energy technologies are also not new to Afghanistan. However, there's definitely a legacy of a poor quality system, a lack of functioning marketplace, and donor funds that have distorted the market prices and have created an environment that doesn't really support the sector maturation. And on the other hand, doesn't really incentivize customers to invest in high quality solar systems. If we can go next. I would like to walk you through the original thinking of our BOLTO model that involved an initial technical assessment that investigated the load needs, the exposure, the availability of space of potential candidates for these solar systems. And this was carried out by our renewable energy department. And this department selected potential customers that then underwent a financial assessment by our financial partner, Oxus. So at the end of these two-sided assessments, we had approved clients that received a package of leasing and technical services, along with the customized solar package adapted for their needs. And this was installed by qualified engineering, procurement, and construction installer. So under the BRESHNA project, we tested this model with 11 businesses and households, and the systems that we install ranged from 3 kilowatt peak to 20 kilowatt peak, and the total beneficiary were 1,744 people. So we also knew that to scale up this model, we required increased dedicated financing systems. So the upfront cost of solar photovoltaic system is still unaffordable for the majority of Afghans. So we really needed to develop tailored leases that could come from microfinance institutions that could fit within the monthly incomes that people make in Afghanistan. So we tried to develop the model further, and you can go to the next slide, please. We developed a new proposal that is still pending for approval, so fingers crossed. This program is called Frontier Energy Platform, or FEP, Power to Empower. So this is really like a model for advancing the commercial and institutional solar photovoltaic system in Afghanistan as a viable energy solution. So the program consortium really developed from the initial BRESHNA program and try to optimize on the unique sectorial and geographical strength of each partner that was part of BRESHNA. So the program will bridge the gaps to installing and using solar photovoltaic systems by providing financial and technology advisory services to businesses in urban and peri-urban areas in 6 provinces: Kabul, Kandahar, Mazar-e-Sharif, Herat, Jalalabad, and Taloqan. The program has 4 objectives that are really about building a scalable model to increase access to affordable, reliable, and clean energy for Afghan businesses, all improving the consumer confidence for these systems, advancing the capacity of the local installers and the financing institution to meet a growing demand, and establishing a pathway for Afghan businesses to try to expand their revenue and opportunities for export growth. So throughout this program, we are really hoping to reach at least 200 businesses and households that are divided in 3 segments that would utilize systems under 20 kilowatt peak, under 150 kilowatt peak, and over 150 kilowatt peak. So the difference is quite wide. And as you can see from the slide, we have what we call critical functions. We have 5 of them. The first one, again, is really to try to assess the technical and financial feasibilities of potential clients. The second one speaks about tendering for the installation services. And again, especially for the smaller systems, we're really trying to aggregate the demand to cut the cost. The third one, it's around the investment facilitation and really trying to increase access to financial services. The fourth one is about operation and maintenance. So not only we wanted to have qualified installers, but they must also provide warranties for the systems that they put in place. And the final one is really collaboration on policy and regulatory engagements with the national authorities. So to do all this, we tried to create 2 funds, and this is, I think, a little bit one of the beauties, honestly, of this program. The first fund covers really the upfront cost of the initial procurement and the installation. While the second fund is a revolving capital fund that sits in a dedicated bank account managed by Mercy Corps and is replenished by the installments that are paid from the clients. And this revolving fund is then used to install additional system, increasing, of course, the impact of the project. So I hope that this is clear enough. And of course, if you have any questions, Baryalai and myself will try to answer on the Q&A session. And you have also the slide with some of our references. And for anything, just shoot an email. Thanks.